from the BBC World Service and NRK. This is Death in Ice Valley.
With me, Neil McCarthy.
And me, Marit Tigraf.
Coming to you with a special edition live from Bergen in Norway, where the story began.
And joining us performing live is the excellent composer of Death in Ice Valley, Phil Channell.
Thank you. We've been away a while, but we're back, and it's great to be back, with episode 11.
This show isn't so much about our investigation, but yours.
We said from the start that we wanted the listeners to help us crack this case. We're not quite there yet, but it's amazing how many of you have been inspired by the story to become detectives yourselves.
We're about to hear what you've been up to over the past year. Thanks to all of you who have come to listen here at Kvarteret, which is the student union of the University of Bergen. Thank you for coming. You're all welcome.
Yeah, you are, and we have a very special panel of guests here with us, all people you've got to know during the series so far. And they'll be answering questions from our audience here and questions that you've been sending from around the world. But first, we're going to listen to what we've been recording with some of our Death in Ice Valley detectives.
Yes, Death in Ice Valley has come home to Bergen.
We're up in the hills behind Bergen in western Norway, surrounded by mighty pine trees. There are icicles hanging off the branches and off the rocks nearby, and the ground's covered in snow, and snow is starting to fall again. It's late afternoon. Isdal Valley is very near, but we're back really where it all started.
You can see here I have a bag with me. And this is equipment for digging. I have axe with me. And you see here the metal detector is two pieces. You have to take it together.
So you were back here, Marit, recently with somebody who knows the area well and has special techniques to find and search for clues.
Yeah, this guy took contact with us, telling us that he has been searching in Isdalen with his metal detector for almost 2 years.
I put it on like that. You get the peep, like that. And I found everything with this. And you can hear it. If it's iron, it's like that. And so it's a good noise.
This is Death in Ice Valley. Turning detective.
So, to remind ourselves, the Isdal woman's badly burned body was found on a mountainside outside Bergen in Norway on the 29th of November 1970. Laid around her were objects, jewellery, a watch, a rubber boot, cake, liquor. But all traces of her identity and the labels on her clothes had been removed.
The police searched the surrounding area but didn't find anything else. But now, nearly half a century later, Arne Magnus Wabe has been searching the area, and he has found something potentially very interesting.
The search after some found in this area around the spot where the woman was found. I have been searching for almost 2 years, but in 2016 I take an area from the road where you can drive with a car up to the point where this girl find the body. And it's like, if we say it's 200 meters in a square. But it was nothing to find. So in 2017 I begin in the other area and tried the same method, and it was nothing. It was nothing to find at all.
So you have been here many times?
Yes, I've been here many times. It's good exercise, and it's exciting to use this detector in a search like this. And you know, this case is everybody in Bergen or Norway know about it. So I always think that it's possible to find something in the area around where the victim was found. So when you are alone, it's a creepy thing to go here. You know that people have used this place to have rituals, and they have take their lives, everything like that. So it's not a nice place to be. This forest is not taking down, so this is exactly the same as it was for 48 years ago. So I've done searching in this area now in October for 1 hour and a half, and then it was something down in the ground. And exciting, very exciting. When you go with the detector, it's like gambling. You think you're winning all the time.
How was it like that day when you came here to this spot?
Yeah, it was something like that. It was iron, and it was other metal like copper, like bronze or something like that. So it was a mixing noise.
But really loud noise.
And you know that it's a big thing you have found.
And then?
And then I dig down 15 to 20 centimeters, take my finger under. I don't know, if you dig up on a thing, you can damage it. So I go under this thing, and I feel it was something organic or something like that. It's soft. And then I saw that it was a belt on it, a black belt with some iron on it. And then I know it was a bag. And then I take a handbag up.
Wow.
Yeah, so
it must have been a great feeling for you that day.
Yeah, of course.
It did definitely look like the handbag was hidden. It wasn't by accident just lying on the ground.
No. This is not accident. And it's just threw it away. This is just for hiding. Maybe a person have hide it to come back, and it was something interesting in this thing. I don't know.
You have secured the handbag?
Yes. I have not opened the handbag. I think this could be a very good evidence for the police. And I know that the people in NRK have used many hours to search on this case. So I think it's good thing for them to be with me when I deliver it to the police. And let's see what's happening after. Maybe it's a shot in the air, but I don't know.
So the first find in 50 years.
Yeah, can you imagine?
It doesn't surprise me in a way that, like, nothing has been found. That place, I've been there, and it's a boulder-strewn, forested area. But the police investigation was pretty thorough, right? They were there. They were all over that place.
Yeah, they were. And the police were very thorough in their search. They also used metal detectors and search dogs.
And this is just like 40 meters away from where the body was buried. So he took this off the mountain, this bag. What did he do with it next?
He secured it at his home in his garage and waited there for the police and us to come and get it. We'll come to that later. So, Neil, as you know, a lot of people have been contacting us after the series. And one of them, I think we should speak with her. She lives in Denmark. Her name is Cecilie Flo, and she has a special story to tell us.
Denmark, close to Norway. Any connection with Norway?
Definitely. Cecilie was living in Bergen as a child with her family before they moved to Denmark. And her grandfather, Rolf Flo, he was actually by the Bergen police.
And is he still alive?
No, he's dead. But her father brought Cecilie a story that she wasn't aware of.
And I asked my father if he knew anything about if my grandfather had been working on the Isdal woman case. And my father he had this reaction I had never seen before. He got very quiet, and it's kind of like I punched him in the gut. He just had to take some deep breaths, and he walked away. I even get a little bit emotional myself because it was just such a strong reaction. And my father said that, yes, my grandfather had worked this case, and he explained that this was a case that had, in a sense, broken my grandfather's, I guess, trust in his work. And my father said that it was a case that had been very frustrating also because the police had been, at least my grandfather had this feeling that they were being put barriers on their work. So they were being told to work the case. But then when they worked the case, they were being told, don't work it anymore, or don't go into that, don't go down this track. And that was very frustrating, I think, to my grandfather, who was a man who was very hardworking. And I guess my father, even though he was only 10 years old, he must have sensed this frustration from my grandfather and possibly seen some notes or some crime scene photos. And it was very strong for me to hear about this because my mother was there as well. And they've been married for like 35 years, my parents, and my mother knew nothing about this fact. And then we started listening a little bit later that evening to the podcast, and actually had to stop it because my father was so affected by it. I was somehow, opening an old wound that he had buried so deep in him. So it was very difficult for him to hear. And then he's been telling me a little bit, bits and pieces of the case, but it's still too hard for him to talk about. And I know that he's been talking to you, Marit, on the phone, but the reason I'm doing this and not him is because it's too hard for him to talk about. So, yeah.
This story makes you wonder again, what was of such importance 50 years ago?
Yeah.
That it was worth it.
And that's the big mystery here. But I waited with writing to you until I had heard, I think, maybe 8 episodes or so. And then towards the last couple of episodes, you start touching on the fact that there were possible links to some foreign intelligence and possibly Israel. And that was when I knew that I had to write to you and sort of confirm it, because second after my father said, yes, your grandfather has been working on this case, he said there was something about some links to Israel. And that was why the case was shut down. So that was my father's understanding of it. So once the police in Bergen had been working the case and were digging deeper and finding some possible connections to foreign intelligence, then it seemed like that was when the local police, the Bergen police, were somehow being shut down.
Vel, saken jo ikke ferdig, men fra første stund så har man gått ut fra at det ikke forelå.
Yes, the murder investigation was shut down rather abruptly, just 3 weeks after it was launched.
Så det vi vet, intet som gjør oss grunn til å anta.
What you're hearing is one of the bosses in the Bergen police giving a press conference to a smoke-filled room of journalists.
The police chief is saying they have no indications that she was a spy. But there were numerous theories going around about the Istal woman belonging to some foreign intelligence agency or other, including Mossad, the Israeli secret services.
Cecilia says her grandfather and the Bergen police made a link between the case and Israel, and that's why the case was shut down. But we have no solid evidence to back that up.
Yet.
It's been really an eye-opener for me. I feel like I understand my father and my grandfather a little bit more after knowing about this. It's a sad occasion, but it's given me and my family a little bit more insight into my grandparents and my father. But I will definitely be listening to it because we urge you, both my father and I, urge you to keep working this case.
That's quite a revelation. I really wasn't expecting that.
It's a strong story, huh?
Yeah, so you talked to her father about the grandfather, about how these traumas are passed down through the generations.
Well, I think this makes it even more clear that what we're working on here is not just a project about a woman's identity. This is about more than that. this has influenced families, people's lives through 50 years. This case. And again, what could be of such importance almost 50 years ago that it was all worth it?
When we left the email address at the end of the podcasts, we never knew what would come in, just like Cecilia's family story.
We've got lots of feedback, theories, and possible new leads.
And many of you have turned detectives yourselves working on the case. Marit, you went to visit one of them, didn't you?
Yes, I did. Torunn Wahl sent me a message saying, "We've found a box full of documents from the Isdal woman case stored in the basement. Are you interested in seeing them?" Can you imagine? Yeah, I tell you, I was interested. Of course, I was curious and I went to visit her just outside Oslo. Hello, it's Torunn.
Yes, it's me.
Thank you for inviting, and I'm very, very excited about what you told me on the phone.
I hope I can help you.
Let's see what you have.
Shut the door first.
Yes.
You can come in the living room. And here's the box with documents.
Wow.
It's from the Isdal's case. And there might be something in there for you.
We can see that there are some old newspapers in this box.
Yeah.
And obviously, this is a big folder with police reports.
Yeah, I think it's 5 of them. Big documents. You might seen it before, but I wanted you to see them in case there is something in there.
How did this box show up? Where did you find it? How did it happen?
I'm very interested in the case, and I told the friends of my son to listen to the podcast. And they got very excited, and one day one of them showed up with this case.
How? How did he find it?
It was a relative that had this case at home. We'd like to help you to solve this mystery.
Wow, I look forward to come to the office and read everything. And we'll meet again.
Yeah. Looking forward to hear if you found something new.
I will tell you. I will call.
Good luck.
Thank you. We'll come back to her later in the podcast.
I can go first.
You might remember Anrita Hovden, the manager of the Hotel Hordeheimen, the last place the Isdal woman stayed before she disappeared in November 1970. Can we have a quick look? It appears we had some wrong information about the room she stayed in. We thought it was on the corner, with a good view onto the streets below. But our listeners, again, have been helping us with our ongoing investigation. One of you has done some in-depth research and found an old room planner for the hotel. The room that we thought the Isdal woman was staying at was on the corner, is what we thought. But actually, it's a few doors down, it's here, and that's because there's been sort of reorganisation of the rooms.
That's correct, yes. Yeah.
So it has also been a myth amongst you here in the hotel that she actually stayed in that corner room we saw the last time?
Yeah, the story has always been that she stayed in the room with the balcony so she could see everywhere, but that might be a myth, of course.
And this room also has a bay window now, a window that juts out onto the road a little bit more. It's not flat and flush with the rest of the building.
It has more windows than most of the other double rooms have, yeah.
Anyway, what we can say is the view isn't much different from this room.
We seem to be going through the mountain.
Yeah.
We're on a funicular. It's like a railway going up the mountain.
It's a 150 years old railway. And we will come up now to Bergen Mountains.
Uh-huh.
And it's very popular by tourists and everybody.
So we're climbing up, passing white wooden houses and bridges and rock.
Be careful, don't look down, maybe you get scared here.
So we're in the snow a bit here now.
Yes, there is some snow and ice in this road up too.
This is Kjetil Kværsøy, a sea captain who used to live in Bergen in 1970. He has a story he wants to share with us.
In our Mystery Men episode, we reported on the various sightings of the Isdal woman with men, in Bergen hotel rooms or restaurants or shops. But this is slightly different.
He wants to show us a place up in the mountains over Bergen where he's convinced he saw the Isdal woman in 1970. A friend of his heard the podcast and got in touch with him.
And I haven't been speaking to her for about 25 years. And one evening, she says, Ragnhild, you must call them and tell them your history, so you can be finished with that. They need your information. I had to tell somebody about it, because this tragedy filled me up. I have remembered it good for 48 years. I have always had a need to tell it to somebody. I didn't want to have it for myself.
And we have been walking now 20-25 minutes from that point at Fløen Mountain where you have the beautiful view over Bergen. We have Isdal Valley behind us over there. Just for you, Neil, to get an impression.
So Isdal Valley behind us, Bergen below us, and we're in deep snow here, and it's midwinter, and beautiful hawthorn trees and conifer and spruce trees all around. It's very picturesque. We've had skiers come past us, but there's hardly anyone around, is there? It's very, very quiet, very solitary. And you haven't been up here for many years.
I have not been here since I had this meeting 48 years ago. And I was going here quite often before. But after that, I couldn't go here.
What? Right. After that, you couldn't come here again?
No.
What? You were walking right here where we are standing now, or?
I was coming down here in good mood, feeling good. And I was surprised. Some people were coming up to the mountain, and that was not normal. And I saw nobody else, and I had been walking for a couple of hours. And finally I saw somebody here. A lady first and two men behind. And they were very close, like they should go in the town. Next I saw her, I come closest to her. And I'm thinking she had not enough clothes on. And when we meet, she was very close. Her face was looking at me. And the face, to me it looks like she was scared and she were giving up. And for me, when I go in mountains, I always say hello. Here, everything stopped. And when the men behind, I met them a little bit further down. And they continue going to the mountain, the wrong way, not to the town.
And how far behind were they?
About 20 meters.
Oh.
And they not communicated. But the faces was dead. It was wooden face on all. It's not normal.
Do you think they were following her or were they with her?
No, they were following her. The lady know that they were coming after her, but they didn't communicate. That was my impression.
Did she look like she was being chased in some way?
No, she only looks scared.
Did she look you in the eyes?
Yes. And when she looked at me, I even feel that she started to say something, but she didn't. And then she looked also behind her and see these men, but I'm sure she know they were going after her. I feel that.
What do you remember about their looks? What did she look like?
I remember the hair, dark hair, going down on the side, not too long, but something. And also the man coming behind had dark hair and was a little bit more brown in the skin than we are here, but not too much.
So you thought they didn't look Norwegian, or?
And I didn't. I was thinking South Europe.
After you had this experience meeting these people here up in the mountains, some days after you could read in the news about a woman found dead in Isdalen, and you got more and more convinced
Yes.
that was the same
Yes.
woman as you had met. But you waited some days or
I
some
waited.
time before you contacted the police officer.
I waited maybe too long. I didn't go to the police station because I feel a crazy man coming and telling a crazy story. But I know a police. I didn't know that he was working with the case and tell this story. And he was very, very nice. Han sa det at Ketil, ikke bry deg om dette. Denne saken her, den kan vi ikke bry oss med.
What he is telling is that the Norwegian police officer, his friend, said that this case is way beyond our task.
Yeah, he said that.
It's an international case, and it's never going to be solved.
Yeah, exactly what he said. It was just a short time. After that, it come information more. And as I can understand now, it's many moments fit together, yes. And still now, even if so many different theories, I feel I met this lady.
What a story. It has echoes of what Cecilia just told us about her grandfather being told to drop the case by his police superiors.
And it ties in with the mystery man she was spotted with in Bergen, although she was never seen with two men at a time.
But the way Ketil tells that story, you can really imagine them following her into the mountains. Well, following her or accompanying her.
Yeah, he was pretty sure that the group belonged together in some way, at least. They knew each other. Now, he thinks this happened on a Sunday. He's pretty sure about that. And that is the awkward thing about Ketil's story. Because we know that she was found on a Sunday morning. And we know that the last sighting of her is on a Monday, the Monday before the Sunday when she was found. And Ketil explains that this all happened on a Sunday, but a Sunday late afternoon. That means that it can't be the day when she was found. It must have been the Sunday before, or another Sunday. But that doesn't rule out the story anyway, does it?
No, it doesn't mean it wasn't her. I mean, she could have just returned from that trip and gone back up again.
Yeah, he also said that maybe the fact that this group, that they met him that Sunday, that was a surprise to them, so for some reason or another they returned.
But whilst we're talking about the mysteries and secrets of the mountains in Bergen, what about the story we started with, the bag that was found by the metal detectorist? What happened next with that?
I was with him when he delivered it to the forensics team at the Bergen police, Nils Jarle Øvåg and Kjell Helland Hansen.
I have a present for you, and I hope it will give some results. It's from the Valley of Ice South.
Thank you very much. Most exciting this, and let's see what we can get out of it.
Yes, it's not open. It's like I found it.
We'll take it to our lab and see what we can sort out and try to open it as gently as possible.
Yes, it's a heavy one. It's a couple of kilos, so it's maybe something in it. I don't know.
No.
Oh, this is exciting, huh?
Yeah, this is exciting, really exciting. Certainly it's been a long time on the ground.
Yeah, and we hope it to have some connection with the Isdal woman. And this is maybe the first lead of evidence we have in almost 48 years.
And it's only 40 meters from where she was found, so how many persons are there in the area?
Well, we thank you for your cooperation, and we will, after we have processed it, we will keep you in the loop to let you know what we have found.
I'm grateful for that.
So thanks a lot.
Yeah, thank you.
See you.
Yeah.
So we're in a laboratory. What can you see from it so far?
There's lots of roots in it and also lots of dirt and soil. So what we will do is to try to clean it, to find out which part is up and which part is down. But you can tell in the color that it has a bluish, grey-bluish cast with red stripes. Yes, it's very exciting, and I can't wait to look inside actually. But we need to do this carefully so we don't destroy more than we have to. So we'll use a brush to brush off some of the dirt and soil.
I can tell that in this room it's so exciting to be now. You should have been here, Neil. This is wow! I can't wait till I open it.
We see that we have some inhabitants in this bag, some worms between all the roots. We have here two straps, probably for carrying on shoulders. So could this be a backpack? But they're quite small. And here you see in the upper part of inside there is some yellowish leather patches with buttons on it. What do you think this is, Nils-Ove?
Can see on school bags. You used to have
a ruler.
A ruler, yes.
Yeah, I remember.
That it has belonged to a child?
Well, if you see the length of the straps, they are not very long. It's approximately 35 centimeters long, plus the bottom parts, which can be adjusted. Straighten out the bottom of the backpack.
Actually, in the bottom of it is not so much soil as well.
But also in the bottom there, it's nothing. It's empty.
No, it's very empty, really. It's nothing. We can't say that the backpack has been empty when it went there, but if it's been, like, for example, paper, or that could have been totally broken down and gone to soil.
Because this has been there for a long time. But if there had been some metal items, for instance keys or something like that, you would expect them to have at least parts of it to have survived.
So the temperature was definitely high in this room and the excitement, but now we can conclude there's nothing to find in this backpack.
No, we are a little bit as empty as the backpack.
Yeah. It's a bit disappointing, I must say. Of course, we really wanted it to be something in here. I cannot say any different than that.
I was hoping so much for a passport or some kind of identification.
Or anything. At least anything that can tell us who this backpack was belonging to.
I can hear all your disappointments, and I really am too as well. I so much wanted there to be something inside, and how frustrating, nothing. But like the policeman says, if there was something like paper ID documents, they probably would have rotted away anyway. Is there anything else that can be done with this bag? Test it for the Isdal woman's DNA or something?
No, the experts on that said it's no use after being so long in the ground. It was a case of being so near and yet so far. I still believe that this bag has some connection to the case, though. Found only 39 meters from the body, and in such a desolate area, huh?
So we're on the outskirts of Oslo. Everything is white. There's a metre high of snow on top of everything, the chairs, the benches, the rooftops. It's a wondrous place. We're in the midst of a snowdrift, but there are houses. You can just about see them. Some beautiful old ones with red wooden timber, typical here. And next to us a more modern one. The lights are on and it all looks very, very cosy. Now, this is the house you came to a few weeks ago, and where there was a surprise discovery of some documents. And now you brought me back here.
Yes, we are going here to meet Torunn, the lady who took contact with me telling she had some documents, possibly new documents for us on the Easter Woman case. And she has now actually gathered the young guys in this crime club, and they are excited to meet us.
So they meet occasionally to discuss the case and go through the documents and that kind of thing?
Yeah, I've understood they are very excited about the case and are discussing and trying to help us and to solve the case.
Good, well, it's going to be warmer in there than out here, so let's go in.
Okay.
Sitting around Torunn Wahl's table with documents and photographs laid out are Sindre Bratli, Fredrik Knudsen and Thomas Hayes, all in their early 20s.
But Thomas is not just an amateur sleuth, is he? He's quite a famous actor in Norway.
Yeah, he's quite a hotshot actually, not only in Norway but in Scandinavia and some other countries, because he plays a character called William in a TV series called Skam, or Shame in English. But first up, Sindre.
How did that happen, that you came to this story? Tell us.
It started when I was celebrating my mom's 50th birthday, and I was in Voss on the west coast of Norway, close to Bergen, where I met my uncle, and I told him that I had listened to the podcast. And then he stood up and went around the table and to shake my hand. He said that he was touched by that I had so many years after he had worked on the case, listened to the podcast, and that the case was interesting to listen to.
Because what was your uncle's connection with the case?
He was working for Bergensavisen, a newspaper in Bergen in the 90s. And 25 years after the case, he made a big article about the case, and he also lent the documents from the police in Bergen and never delivered them back.
Amazing that you got these documents from him. And we were given the possibility to go through them. And I can tell you now that actually we have been going thoroughly through every single document in here, and you actually managed to find some brand new documents to us that we didn't know of before. Not many, but some few, and that's great.
Yeah, that's impressive. I thought my uncle always was clear about that everyone that has access to the Statsarkivet, jeg vet ikke hva det
States Archive?
Has access to those documents, but apparently there was some new documents.
That's true. What we do know is that this case has had thousands and thousands of documents, but there are some documents lacking in the States Archive because they are in some basements around. So,
What do you do when you come together and talk about the case?
We started listening to the podcast, and we came up with different theories about what happened or what was she actually doing in Bergen or in Norway, and started talking about who this woman actually was. And later then Sindre came across these documents, and then we sat down and started going through all the papers and news articles and started discussing further on from that.
And I guess you wanted to solve the case.
Obviously, I think she's a spy or something like that, because she was spotted by some military places in Bergen, and so I think she was just too tired about doing her job, and she killed herself, I guess.
What is your theory?
My theory is she's a spy or an agent, but how she died, I think it was another man who killed her, but I don't think she killed herself.
And there's one thing here that we should explain our international audience, that one of these guys, Thomas, is an actor in a web series called Skam. Skam started very slowly, and then it increased and got to an enormous popularity, not only in Norway, in Scandinavian countries and in other countries. It reached US as well.
Yeah.
So
And China.
And even China. So in a way, we are merging here the biggest international success stories from Norwegian broadcasting for the last years, because Skam did reach out and Death in Ice Valley did reach out. So I guess you have a lot of followers.
Yes.
Thomas, did you tell them about the Isdal woman?
No, this has kind of remained between us four, actually, a little crime gang. But it will definitely be interesting to tell people about it when this comes out.
Yeah.
Because I have a lot of followers from Russia, Ukraine, and maybe they probably have some relatives that have disappeared during the 70s. Who knows?
You should definitely tell your followers to listen to Death in Ice Valley, because, maybe you're right. Somebody out there knows something.
Yeah, certainly someone knows, but if it's from Russia, Ukraine, England, Norway, Sweden, Denmark, who knows? But maybe something will come up. Maybe some have some great aunt or something who just disappeared in the 70s. Who knows?
Unfortunately, the new documents the guys found didn't reveal any significant new information which moves the case forward.
But all credit to them for finding them, looking into them, and thanks ever so much for bringing them to our attention.
From the Facebook group, we can see there are online conversations going on between listeners from all over the world, Bangladesh, Australia, and even Antarctica. Lots of amateur detectives working on the case.
It was great to actually meet a group that comes together to try and work on the case. The most frequently asked question from listeners has been, why don't we compare the DNA profile of the Isdal woman with the biggest commercial databases containing millions of DNA profiles? And as we've explained before, the DNA material in the case belongs to the police. And the Norwegian police has so far not allowed the material to be run through commercial databases that people use to find out about their ancestry. And that's for legal and ethical reasons.
But there might be hope for the future. Genetic genealogy is a field with an explosive growth when it comes to solving identity cases, especially in the USA. We're talking about using unknown persons' DNA to track down distant relatives, and combined with traditional genealogical methods to build family trees to finally get to the answer and find the person's identity. And one of the world-leading experts within this area, who's had great success with solving cases, has contacted us and wants to contribute in solving the identity of the Isdal woman. And here she is, American scientist Colleen Fitzpatrick.
Well, I contacted you because I had read an article on how you guys had already done some isotope testing, which narrowed down her origins. So that piqued my interest. I'm part of the DNA Doe project, part of the new way of doing identification, and we handle many cases that have had the isotope testing done, and we've actually made the identification of those people. It's a very well-known case, and it's very interesting. We'd love to work on it.
And as a matter of fact, the wheels are slowly in motion in Norway now. Since there has been a revolution in solving cases with methods like this, there's now going to be a legal hearing to decide if the police can use this process to solve cases like the Isdal woman.
So for the time being, we have to wait and hope.
Meanwhile, our own investigation goes on and is taking us to some unexpected places.
For now, thanks to all our listeners in this episode of Death in Ice Valley who turned detective for us.
Well, there you have it, the signature sounds of Phil Channel and the beating, driving, freezing Bergen rain that's become so synonymous with this podcast. My name's Philip Sellers, and I'm one of those people whose name is buried in the credits of Death in Ice Valley. So the credits are the bit that you fast forward through to get to the more interesting stuff. But I'm the series editor, and it's been my privilege to work with Marit and Neil for the last 2 years on Death in Ice Valley. And I don't know about you, but when I've listened to an episode of Death in Ice Valley, what I really want to do is sit down with a cup of tea. Being a British person, having a cup of tea evens out the emotional peaks and troughs of life. Having a cup of tea, maybe a biscuit, and thinking hard about it. Now, I can't offer you that opportunity because we're in the middle of a podcast. What I can say to you is you're now getting the opportunity to ask the questions that you've always wanted to ask of Marit, Neil, and some experts. You will be familiar with them from the series. We have Bergen crime writer Gunnar Sturlason. We have forensic pathologist Inge Morild. And superintendent from the Bergen police, Niels Jarle Jervåg. So, whilst you're reflecting on your questions, I also have some questions from our Facebook group. We've been harvesting questions from the Facebook group as we go along, and they've responded in plenty. So have a think about your questions. I'm going to ask some questions from the Facebook group. If you want to be part of the Facebook group, it's facebook.com/groups/Death in Ice Valley. But you're very welcome to join that community. I thought I'd start, Marit, with you. Podcasting is a very private affair. You have just listened to your work whilst staring out at an audience. How does it feel to have a podcast in this rather strange environment?
It feels great, I have to say, and I think I speak for the both of us, saying it feels especially great to be here in Bergen, where the story actually started.
Niels, you work with Bergen Police, and the podcast genre is a very popular genre now. We think at Death in Ice Valley that we do it differently because we have interaction with the audience. What is it like having Marit, Neil, and 20,000 amateur detectives doing your job for you?
In many cases, especially cases like this, we are depending on the people out there, and the people are the greatest detective. Especially in such as this case, when we are trying to get identity from a woman we don't know who is, and certainly we don't know where she come from, and to get it out in the world like this, and perhaps somebody out there says, "Hey, I had an aunt who went missing at that time. Could that be her?" So of course they are very important to solve cases like this.
It's good to know. And Gunnar Sturlason, as a crime writer, obviously you make some crimes up. What is it about this true life crime that you think has captured the imagination of literally millions of people around the world?
Well, it really is a big mystery because there is the question of her identity that we don't know. But I think the biggest question is what was she doing at this remote place in the mountain around Bergen? Because if she wanted to do a suicide, she could do that much easier in several places before going all this way into the ice valley. And if somebody took her there and killed her there, why didn't they get rid of the body afterwards? Because it was almost a week since she was last seen and till she was found. And of course, for a crime writer, this is the two biggest mysteries, I think. And of course, her background was, I think, in this episode, what was most interesting for me was the story of the woman who told about her grandfather, the policeman, yes, who was refused to continue the investigation, because that seems the same story as Tore Osland has told about his father, who was one of the main investigators. And one of my theories has always been that there is some connection to Israel in this case.
We may come back to that. Inge Morild, when we watch American crime dramas, it's always, you're a forensic pathologist, it's always the case that when there's DNA, this is halfway to solving the case. But that's more complicated in the Death in Ice Valley case, isn't it? Why is that?
In a forensic case or a criminal case, you have nearly always somebody to compare your DNA findings with. But here, there's nothing. But I'm a little bit interested in those big databases that exist in the USA, for example. And I hope the police will decide this very soon.
Can you, Niels, shed any light on whether the authorities here are likely to share this DNA and allow it to be shared with databases?
There is a legal hearing if we, as a police, should be able to do that in the commercial basis. So I don't know how long before it will come an answer, yes or no. But we are waiting.
Good. Well, I think Death in Ice Valley will be waiting with you as well. Are there any questions in the audience?
My name is Katrine Løvås, and I'm from Bergen. My question to BBC and NRK is actually, what archives have you been searching, and can you tell us about each and every one, please?
Yeah, we'll be here till tomorrow, I think. Marit, do you want to do that?
Stay here till tomorrow if we're supposed to give all our sources. But our main source is, of course, the police documents from the State's Archive. That is the main and basic source for us, has been from the very beginning. But, of course, as you know, we have done a lot of things, scientific experiments, and we have been researching in different archives, from the archives at the Goddess Institute in the basement there to archives abroad, totally other types of archives.
I'm Tore Osland. My father was the main investigator at the Isdal woman case. And there are so many things I can ask. But one thing is that, why are there so different ages?
Marit, do you want to address that one?
I think there have been different age estimates. We have the time witnesses who says she was around 30, somebody says older than 30, somebody says a bit younger than 30. And then you have the autopsy report, Inge, and saying around 30-something. And then we have used scientific methods from Karolinska Hospital experts in Sweden, analyzing the teeth with 2 different methods. And they came to the quite shocking result for me, actually, that this was a more mature woman, maybe born around 1930, plus minus 4 years, meaning this was a woman around 40, maybe even older than 40, at the time of her death. A shocking result, because I guess most of us assumed this was a younger woman. On the other hand, we have to trust science. And our project is very much based on science. That's what we work with to try to find her identity. Speculations, we can speculate for another 50 years, and that will not give any solution. So our hope from NRK side and from NRK BBC side has all the time been to use science and modern forensic methods like DNA and so on to try to come closer to the answers.
The science, and obviously we trust our witnesses, and what the witnesses see is the age they would give her. But if we also are open to the belief that she was in disguise or wanting to look at a different age to the age she actually was, or wanted to look younger, then that's all part of the story.
You said that your father was involved in the case. It would be interesting to think about that suggestion we heard, that there was some sort of cover-up in this. Did he describe that to you?
Yeah, and the case was closed against the will of most investigators, against the will of the policemen in other places in Norway, against the will of the investigator that was a technical investigator. He said that I really have a bad feeling in this case for calling it a self-murder.
It might be worth just bringing in, I'm not guilty of the sins of the fathers, but Niels, you're with Bergen Police and West Norwegian Police now. What do you think when you hear the suggestion this is a case that may have been closed prematurely and may have had pressure on it to be closed?
Of course, such a case, with the details they come up with all the identities. We don't know who she were. We don't know what she's doing here. To close such a case after 3 weeks, that wouldn't have happened, no. That's for sure.
Gunnar, this was during the Cold War, and the Secret Service was, of course, had a big influence on politicians in Norway and also on the police, I guess. So there's always been a suspicion that the Secret Service knew more about this case than they ever has told. And of course, it's a name. They have secrets. I still think they have some secrets in their archives that they don't are allowed to see.
Yes. And do you think, I mean, the series as a whole, Death in Ice Valley, edged towards the conclusion that she was involved in some kind of international espionage. Do you agree with that, or do you think that's merely part of the story, or in fact there could be other reasons? People on Facebook suggesting, Kev Peter suggesting that we've overlooked the fact that this could just be someone who had psychiatric problems, who was very low and depressed and fragile and took their own life. And there's a sense of debate there about whether we're inventing a series of events that we want the Cold War to have provided or not.
No, my personal theory, which have no really depths, is that she was hunting for war criminals, old Nazi people, either in Norway or coming from Germany and settling in Norway, because this is just the same period as Simon Wiesenthal and his group was hunting for old Nazis all over the world. So that would be my main theory. And Israel was a country that Norway had a very friendly connection to in that period. So if the Secret Service knew that this was what she was doing here, perhaps they would keep that a secret. But it's a lot of other questions that isn't answered by that. So it's only a slight theory.
And this leads to your Israeli idea.
Yeah, and it's only 3 years after that they kill a man in Lillehammer.
This is Mossad.
The Mossad.
Yeah.
So it might be some sort of connection there too.
Just talking about the death, again, there's been discussion on Facebook about the actual cause of death. Inga, maybe this is something you can help us with. She took sleeping tablets, and they were found in her system, but there's discussion about whether all the tablets were digested or whether that was the cause of death. Is there anything you can clear up on that?
The concentration of the drug was measured in her blood, and that is what counts. What you have in your stomach is undissolved tablets. They don't do anything, they just lie there. So it's what you already have absorbed in your system that matters. And she had a concentration which is not lethal, but maybe incapacitating. Is that the right word?
Yes, it is, yeah.
So I think she was incapacitated by the drug, and then she was in some way lying close to a fire and has breathed in smoke. And I think quite clearly that the cause of death is carbon monoxide poisoning. She has a concentration of 48%, what we call carboxyhemoglobin, which is a lethal concentration. So she was in some way drugged down, maybe from her free will or somebody else's, and she was lying there close to a fire or maybe falling into a fire, and then breathing in smoke until she died. Yeah. That's my opinion. Yeah. But when you talk about murder or suicide, I've seen so many bizarre suicides and so many unbelievable wastes of suicide that this is, in my opinion, not impossible.
I am Sébastien Barthélémy, and I come from France, and I work at the university here in Bergen. And my question is, can you think that maybe this woman has been killed in one of the many cabins that there is close to Viden, and then she has been brought here to to merge the clues? And at that time, do you think that the police has investigated the cabins in Viden and close to Ulriken and Fløyen?
Shall we give that to Inga first in terms of did she die where she was found, or killed somewhere else, and then perhaps Niels?
She was breathing in smoke, and there was a fire, so she must have died on the spot where the fire was. or there has to have been a fire or smoke some other places, which is not reported as to my knowledge. So I think she was breathing in smoke and died on the place where the fire was.
And Niels, how extensive was the police investigation at the time? Would they have looked into things like
yes,
that?
What I see when I see the picture and the reports is, and the area where she was found, you should have done something to her before she was into where she was found. There was a big forest, very steep to get her up there, and as we say, nobody carries a body more than approximately 75 meters. But we have done research for around the world if we found outside the road. And to carry around with a body who was already dead, there was nothing really that indicated that. And then they have also had to light her up at that place. So she must have, as Inge said, died in a fire before, and then you have brought her there and lighten her up again.
Marek, go on.
The police did investigate in the cabins in that mountain area. They did. They did search the whole mountain area.
Whilst we're just on the pathology of the death, Oscar Duggan asks on our Facebook group, what do you think is the best account of a bruise found on the back of Isdal woman's head in the autopsy? What might have explained that?
I would had wished there was a photo. This is described as a large hematoma or something in the muscle on the side of the neck, and it may come from a heavy blow with the side of the hand. That is possible, but it can also be the result of a fall against something hard, like a wood or a stone or something. So it doesn't say so much. I doubt that she has been severely injured by that thing.
She wouldn't have been incapacitated.
No,
I think
I don't
it would have
think
been
so.
an inconvenience. Yeah.
They told me that if you blow you to the side of the neck with a certain force, you may lose your conscience for a while, but you will very soon wake up, I think.
Yeah. My name is Torstein. I'm here from Bergen. If we think about the theory about her being a spy, do you think there in the future may be some documents unearthed, like from the Secret Intelligence Service or from secret police or anything? Do you think that might resurface in the future, like being released, like we see with, for example, JFK case in the US?
I think it's in the nature of secret police and secret intelligence services. It's in their nature to be secret, so I don't have much hope for, or Gunnar, do you have hope for them to release something in the future?
Some of these archives are secret for 100 years, perhaps. So perhaps in the future one can get into them.
Okay, hi. My name is Styrmir and I come from Iceland, but I live here in Bergen. And I've been going on walks in Isdal Valley and listening to the podcast while walking around the site. And I'm just wondering about, because there are some indications about like a shutdown on behalf of the secret police or some, because now we all know the reputation of secret police and in different countries like the KGB or Mossad or something like that. Is there any incidents in the past surrounding the Norwegian secret police that indicate that they could themselves carry out like some sort of assassination, or like, you know, if there's a threat, you know, if there's a threat from eastern parts, you know, watching the missile program being developed, you know, do you think the Norwegians themselves could actually carry out something like this?
Well, Gunnar,
I'm quite sure that they wouldn't do that, because if they had done it, they would have got rid of the body. Nobody would have found the body if the secret police in Norway was behind it. So I'm quite sure that that's not the answer to the mystery.
Okay, and I was aware earlier on we had members of the Facebook group in the room. You're normally ever vigilant on the Facebook group. Any more questions? Ah, yes.
Hi, my name is Joachim Nass. Hi.
Thanks for a great podcast. I was just wondering, first to the BBC, probably most of the listeners to the podcast is from England, United States, or English-speaking countries, I guess. And do you think that's a problem, that the areas where it's most important that people know about the case, they don't know it because they don't speak or understand much English?
The World Service podcast is actually reaching out to a lot of countries and is actually also on the list on a lot of the Middle European countries. Additionally, we can say that I have been interviewed from journalists from so many countries for this last 2 years that I don't even remember anymore. So I've done a lot of interviews for that reason. As you say, to us it is important to reach out there to those countries, to a lot of countries in Europe, because we know that the answer is out there. It's definitely not in Norway. She wasn't a Norwegian. So our hope is still to reach out to that somebody who knows something about a lost relative or something. So yeah, we are trying to spread the word, and actually today there is a German TV crew here in here to do an interview with me tomorrow, and they have been interviewing other people. So they will also, like many other TV companies in Europe, bring the story. I mean, people have been coming forward after stories like this. We've been in contact with a lot of people from different European countries. Unfortunately, not the right one till now.
My name is Marie, and I'm a student in Bergen. I wonder, how do you decide on which tips you will research further, and do you research every tip that you get in?
Yeah, I mean, we've got a huge volume of tips coming in. Marit and the NRK team take most of them in. Some of them they will have seen before, some of them are original, some of them, you know, we can't resist but follow up, and some of them don't lead to anything.
We have got, through the podcast especially this last year, an enormous amount of tips, and we are not following all, no, because then we wouldn't do anything else, a lot of us in NRK and BBC. Of course, also because we are not that interested in all of them. That's part of our job, is to find those that can bring us further in our investigation, and that's the one we are following.
Okay, one last question from the Facebook group. It's not a planted question, it's from Ian Briggs, but it's to Neil. Neil, is this just a one-off, this episode 11, or is there a second series? Now, I, as the series editor, couldn't possibly comment, but Neil can.
Well, it's a bit early to say, but back to the previous question as well. You know, these leads are coming in from all over the world and taking us to places we didn't expect. And, you know, quite exciting, but it's just early days, so we have to keep some things under wraps, but hopefully it will lead to something, yeah.
If you were sitting as close as I am to Neil, you'd see a twinkle in his eye when he said that. You can join the Facebook group. It's facebook.com/groups/Death in Ice Valley. Do join the growing throng of people on Facebook. We haven't quite finished, but it might be worth just thanking our panel for making the effort to come here, and thank you for asking all your great questions.
Thanks, Philip, and thanks to all of you, both here in Bergen and our audience around the world who follow the story and even help us shape it. Thanks also to our brilliant panel of experts for sharing their thoughts, to Niels, to Gunnar, and to Inga, and of course to Phil for performing the Death in Ice Valley soundtrack. But we should remember why we're here in Bergen. Well, not to make a piece of entertainment, but because 50 years ago, in the hills just above where we are all sitting now, a frightened, possibly fragile, possibly hunted woman lost her life in the most terrible way.
When we are talking about our theories and trying to solve the case, we must not forget that she was a real person, someone's daughter, someone's friend. We are in Bergen to pay respect to the Isdal woman and to bring our investigation home to her. And we promise to keep looking for clues and leads that might solve the case once and for all, and to allow her to rest in peace.